Welcome artists to Monet Cafe Studio and this kickoff in our theme this month of creative surfaces. I'll be sharing techniques I've learned over the years to create my own soft pastel surfaces, along with some creative alternatives to the traditional sanded pastel papers. And in today's lesson, I'll be demonstrating how you can create soft pastel paintings in a watercolor journal. I was very blessed to have the company Arrtx, it's Arrtx, send me these two very fun and almost whimsical watercolor sketchbooks. I was so impressed with them. I'm going to be sharing more about that as I paint. But first, thank you, Arrtx. I really do love these. And many years ago, I would not have known that I can do pastel paintings in a watercolor sketchbook. Now, let me tell you something great about these watercolor sketchbooks. First of all, they are 100% cotton. That's what you want to look for with watercolor papers. Also, it's a cold pressed watercolor paper. The pages are 140 pound, nice and sturdy. This one is the more of a square format. It's approximately a 6-inch by 7-inch, approximately, size, a little bit more square, and it's a great size. And I also like this little feature. It took me a bit to figure it out, but you see this little section here? Those are where the pages are bound together. But when I first folded it, I thought I had to fold this first page, which is not a watercolor page. It's just kind of like a cover page. I thought that was where I fold it, but lo and behold, you actually pull it back all the way and it allows you to lay it flat. I'm going to zoom in and show you what I mean. You can literally just fold that page all the way back, giving you nearly a gutterless painting surface. This is so cool. I have a pet peeve about books laying flat. That's why I often use a spiral bound book. But this one's so cool because you can still lay it flat and you could actually paint a full spread, in other words, across 2 pages if you lay it flat. So I really do love the design of this sketchbook and the way that it's bound. But I thought I'd go ahead and show you a comparison. This is a Lucetti sketchbook. Some of you may have heard about it. I did a tutorial on this product, and this is one of the flattest notebooks you can get. I actually did an acrylic painting in it. This is what I mean by a full spread. And you can see the binding here. This one has the top page attached to the hardcover, and it is one of the flattest painting surfaces in a sketchbook that you can create on. This is another journal that I love. It's called Dilutions Creative Journal. And its binding is very similar to the Arrtx sketchbook, so I just thought I'd show you. This is where I did a full spread pastel painting. I believe these pages are either watercolor or mixed media, but I'm going to be doing the same technique in the Arrtx book that I did in this one. And here is the binding. You can see it's designed similar to the Arrtx sketchbook, where you can get a fairly flat surface to work on. When I work in pastel in these sketch journals, the way I protect the paintings, I'm going to show you at the end of this video how I do it with the Arrtx journal. I just usually put a piece of tracing paper in between the pages. I want to show you a spiral bound sketchbook that I use for pastel painting. Now, it doesn't go along with our theme as much with creative surfaces because this is a professional pastel paper. It's not one that I'm DIY making myself. But here's what I love about this one. Of course, it lays nice and flat. It's spiral, but it has the sheets of glassine, similar to tracing paper, already in the book. So look at that. You don't have to add anything to protect your pages. This is a fun little painting I did over on my Patreon page, where I think it was the farm theme or something like that. But it's a pastel painting on a pastel surface. I didn't add any extra product to this or anything. I just painted right on the surface. Now, these pages are perforated, much like the Arrtx, or exactly like the Arrtx book. So you can remove the pages very easily. So I love these pages in between to protect your paintings. But again, I'm going to show you with the Arrtx sketchbook how you can do the same thing yourself. Now, I love all of those journals, but I just want to brag on this little Arrtx watercolor sketchbook. First of all, the price is fantastic. The quality is great. I made this little graphic just to show you some of the benefits. So just as a recap, it lays flat. The pages are perforated. You can tear them out. The absorbency is fantastic. It's 100% cotton. You can get it in all of these sizes, and the price is awesome. So check it out. I'll have all the links in the description of this video or post. Now let's paint in the sketchbook. Here we go. I decided to use the larger of the two sketchbooks, and this one is approximately 6 by 8. Also 100% cotton, 140 pound, and the same awesome binding, which allows me to lay this book flat. Now I'm going to give you a tip on how to prep this before painting with pastels or even watercolor. What I like to do is to get a little binder clip. Now, this is back to the smaller sketchbook. I actually just did this demonstration first on the smaller book, but I'll get a binder clip and I'll just clip the back page down just so I don't have to fiddle with it while I'm painting. And also, I have another tip. If you are left-handed like me, I like to flip my notebook around so I'm not having to work across that left side of the page. You'll see me do that in a minute. All right, well, now you can see it right here. I have it flipped upside down with the binder clip on the top of the opposite side. And again, any lefties out there, let me know. And now I am ready to get started. I have pre-selected some pastels that I thought would be lovely for this scene. It's an image I found from unsplash.com. I'll show you in just a second. And for this technique, I love just some cheap brushes. I think I got these on Amazon. You can tell this one's very used. I've used it for various paints like acrylic ink. That's why it's stained, but it's a softer bristle brush. And this little one I love. It is just so full of texture. I'm going to show you why I love this brush in just a minute. Here is the beautiful reference image from unsplash.com. Isn't this gorgeous? I'll give credit to the photographer and give you the link in the description of this video or post. And here are two products that I like. This first one, I use it all the time. It's clear gesso, not regular gesso. Clear gesso is like magic. It's got little bits of sand in it or grit. And that's exactly what allows the pastel to stick to the surface. So I'm going to show you how to apply that. Now, I love this particular product because it works great. It's very affordable though. This is also a great product. It's a little more expensive. It's by Art Spectrum. It's called Pastel and Multimedia Primer. It's a way to make your own soft pastel papers. This one is also clear. I'll tell you the benefit of having a clear application in a minute. But Art Spectrum makes that product in many different colors. Now, because it's watercolor paper, I'm going to take advantage of that and create an underpainting using watercolor. I do this technique quite often on various soft pastel papers, but you can do it on regular watercolor paper and then use my little trick to turn it into a pastel paper. And that's just a Winsor Newton set of watercolor I've had for a long time. You could use anything you have, and as well as brushes. This is a Chinese watercolor brush. I really like this one. It looks real bushy right here and very thick. I like that aspect about it, but I love the fact that I can put some water on it and spin it around, and you can get a really fine point with this, even more fine than it shows here. But I have the ability to get really wide, broad strokes. Now, this really doesn't need much of a sketch to get started, but I grabbed these little Mark Art pencils. I think I got them on sale or something, and I'm just getting a light color and getting in such a basic sketch for the beginnings of this watercolor underpainting. This is a point in the lesson where over on my Patreon page, I have this full video with extra content, commentary, slower speeds. But don't worry, guys, there's more coming. You're going to learn so much more here. And you need to be sure to stay tuned to the end because that's where I'm going to show you how to protect these pages to keep these pastels from smudging between the sheets. But I'll tell you in a minute how, if you'd like to become a patron and get the full content, I'm going to share a coupon code with you and tell you how to do it. All right, let's get back to this painting. And this portion is all real time over on the Patreon page. So patrons, if you're watching this, head over there and you'll see this much slower. But this is the basic sketch. It is super simple. I just did a sloping hill for kind of like the horizon line, but then there was another little hill in the back and a few little suggestions of trees, an indication of some of the deeper grasses, and that's really just about it. Now, I am going to mix up some of these watercolors in this Winsor Newton palette. The way I like to do it is mix little puddles of watercolor so that I can just grab them and get to work. And I like to let my colors mix on the surface. I happen to love watercolor painting. I've kind of gotten a niche of painting in soft pastels, been known for that on my channel now, but I really do love to paint watercolors. So I wanted to get in a nice neutral here and add some dark to it. And then I add some green to it. And like I said, I kind of like to let the colors just mix on the palette. I liked this little ochre color, kind of for some of those middle grasses. If you notice in a landscape image, especially this one where it's really low, you're kind of bending down looking through the grasses, it's usually darker in the foreground, lighter in the middle ground, kind of where I'm working now. That is cooler, like a purple color, because it's a hill that has a shadow to it. And I added a little darker shadow behind those dark trees. And typically the darkest thing in any landscape is trees. They're vertical. They're not catching the sun. And the lightest things are typically the sky and flat land, especially flat land in the distance. So I'm just adding some darker values to the trees. All this underpainting is getting in some big shapes and some color. It's kind of a value study and just a nice loose way to get started. The paper was buckling a little, but not bad. And it flattened out by the time the painting was over. And look at my palette here. I didn't even mean to do this. I worked in primary colors. You see that? Blue, yellow, red, a little bit of black. Now, once this watercolor is dry, we've got a nice underpainting, but what are we going to do to make the pastels stick? If you're a brand new pastel artist, you may have noticed, like I did, I tried painting on just like regular art paper or something. Pastels need a little bit of texture to hold on to. I mean, you can paint on other surfaces, but it'll pretty much just fall off. So I'm going to show you how we're going to make this watercolor paper, turn it into a soft pastel surface. Fortunately, it's really easy and it's way more affordable than the expensive pastel papers. All right, so now I'm going to be using my smooth brush for my first application. Then I'm going to use this little textural brush to show you how to get some texture to the foreground grasses that are very full of energy and motion. And I decided to use the clear gesso because it is more affordable and I use it all the time, but I wanted to just show you this product. I've used this a lot in different colors. I've never used the clear. This is the first time I opened it actually. And I wanted to do a test of the grit. So I felt this. I know you can't hear anything, but I felt the texture of this one. And then I did the same thing with the clear gesso. And I couldn't believe how similar they felt. I've compared them, just in the application, but I'd never done this before. So, yeah, I'm just still a fan of clear gesso. And I'm going to address some things with working this way with some of your questions that you've had. Some of my patrons were talking about some challenges with these homemade surfaces like this that I've had myself too. And I'm going to tell you my workaround. All right, so I like to apply it just right to the brush. You could even apply it right to the surface. And I'm just giving a smooth application. I do work directionally, kind of depending on the element. I pulled it down for the trees or up vertically, in other words. And then I usually will pull across for a field. It's not going to matter that much, but it's just kind of a habit of mine when I'm applying these types of wet mediums. Now, I want to use my textural brush for the foreground. Again, those grasses were all tangled and full of just all kinds of different shapes and motion, and I thought a little texture on the bottom would be good. I don't have that brush yet. I'm first just getting the clear gesso down, and then I'm going to get the textural brush and give strokes that are more vertical and just fun. Just kind of some little short strokes that are just up and down. Notice I'm making my brush turn in different directions. I don't want them all to be exactly the same. And believe it or not, this really does influence your pastel application. If you use, especially if you did maybe 2 layers of the gesso, but you can definitely get a textural effect by using different brushes with this method. Now, I blew it dry with a blow dryer and I have the sound on here. I wanted you to hear it. Can you hear that sound? That is just the little sanded part that's in the clear gesso. And I just turned this watercolor paper into soft pastel paper because I can layer on it now. And again, it's already starting to flatten out. Really, really a nice little sketchbook with really good quality watercolor paper. Ta-da! Now, I'm obviously working flat. That's a lot easier with a sketchbook rather than putting it on an easel. So my pastel dust will accumulate on the surface. So I like to keep a paper towel or something underneath it. I will occasionally lift up the sketchbook and just kind of tap it to let the dust fall down on that paper towel so it doesn't just collect on the surface. You'll see me do that. The next thing I want to address is something that some of you patrons you've already mentioned to me is the challenge sometimes of working on these homemade surfaces. So I'm going to show you the trick, what I've discovered. I've got two blending things I'm going to use here. One is these packing peanuts. That's what you get in your packages to protect them. The other blending tool is this chamois cloth. And the way I use it is I got a huge one. Actually, gosh, a couple of years ago, and I cut little squares out of it like this. You can even wash these. You put them in a little, like a garment bag or something and wash a whole bunch of them. But these are both excellent blending tools. I'm going to show you both of these and I'm going to tell you which one worked best on this surface. But the trick here is that getting down your initial layers are going to feel a little wonky. You guys know that word? I don't even know where that word came from. So blending the first one or two initial layers is the trick to working on these homemade surfaces. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you right here in real time, where I'm going to first apply some of my greens. I got a little collection of some darker greens, and you're really going to be able to see the texture here on these first applications. And to get this to really work best, you're going to want to blend these first few layers with the, I found that I liked the chamois cloth better than the packing peanuts. They both worked, but the packing peanuts ended up kind of rubbing off some of the product of the packing peanut. So the chamois cloth is your best bet. So these first layers are going to be very textured. I thought I did not like working on homemade surfaces the first time I tried this because I thought this looks awful. Here's my little chamois cloth and my packing peanut. But when you blend like this, it's going to do a few things. It's going to really make the color blend nicely and you kind of get things going faster, but also it's going to allow you to add additional layers more easily. I tried, now here's the chamois cloth. See how it's blending so beautifully? I just tried using pastels without blending the first time I tried this, and it kind of eats up your pastels, the texture of the clear gesso. So once you blend your initial layers, you'll see me blend a little more as I add more color. You're able to add, like I'm doing right here, I'm able to add other layers on top. This is just kind of a cool green I'm adding. And they don't fall off as easy and they don't eat up your pastels. Your pastels don't just dwindle down, as much when you blend your initial layers. So that's my tip if you're going to try this technique, and it works great for me. I have become such a fan of working on homemade pastel surfaces with product like this. Now there is another option. You could actually, some people take a little piece of fine sandpaper and you can even sand off a little bit of that texture of the clear gesso, but I like it. I like this look. So anyway, so this is obviously quite sped up here, and I'm going to jump ahead to the end to show you the final. And like I shared before, the Patreon version has so much more content and definitely slower speeds than this. So let me tell you how to become a patron. It is so easy, and my goodness, it's $5 a month, and you unlock hundreds of lessons, my full lessons. We have games, contests, prizes. I get to see your work. That's my favorite thing. and it's just a whole lot of fun. So I'm going to give you a coupon code right now that will give you 50% off your first month. And 1 month is just $5, so that's like $2.50. But hey, every little bit helps, right? Especially these days. But you can see the coupon code here. It's valid until July 31st, 2026, and I'll have this down in the description of this video as well. All right, you are going to get more content here, so let's get back to this painting. I wanted to show you a little bit more of this layering process and blending process. I am giving a little bit of shadow to that second hill in the distance, and a little bit darker values in that little crevice, you know, where the hill slopes down. And now I'm back to using my chamois cloth, and I tap it off just to keep the pastel dust from accumulating on the surface, and it works great. And not much pastel dust even came off, actually. So now I'm going to do my chamois cloth technique again, and you know, before you know it, you can really start to see something, and that wasn't a lot of work. And I think you're going to enjoy trying this yourself. So now I'm going to jump ahead to the section where I was actually painting some of the flowers. I did exaggerate some of the colors in this, but I used the basic colors that were there and just punched up some of them. I could see little hints of little kind of lavender flowers. I chose to make them a little bit more blue and even add some teal. I saw little hints of teal in those flowers. And it's best to keep these elements like flowers very spontaneous. You want things varied and obviously getting smaller in the distance and closer together. And I actually like the painting best at this stage versus the final. I'll show you the final in just a second. But I'm going to hold this up more closely to the camera so that you can see the texture, the mark making. And I really like these kind of unfinished stages of my paintings. So I took a photo of it, and I want to recommend something to you guys. Take little progress shots of your paintings, because you may find at the end that you liked it a little more unfinished. And then if you get a good high resolution photo of it, you can actually make a print out of it and keep it yourself or share it with others. And I am going to show you the final here. I added a lot more flowers. There were a lot of flowers in the reference image, and I kind of wanted to cascade them throughout the field. But every time you add more layers, you lose a little bit of color vibrancy. So again, I did like this, but I wanted to show you how I keep this in a little journal like this. First, I love to use kneaded erasers, Kneaded. They're just like little pieces of gray putty. You can't believe how great these work on erasing soft pastel. So this was that one cover page in the Arrtx sketchbook, and I just wanted to go ahead and clean it up before I add my tracing paper. And all I do is use regular tracing paper, and I cut it to fit. And over the years I've tried doing this, my favorite technique now is to go ahead and tape the tracing paper to the opposite page, rather than just laying it in there. Now that kind of depends on you know, what you've got on the opposite side. If you have a painting on the opposite side, you obviously can't do that. But in this case, it works. I just put a little piece of this artist tape right there in the crevice, and it works great. And what I love about these, again, it's upside down because I'm left-handed. What I love about these little sketchbook journals is they're so fun. They're like little treasures kept in a book, and you can create them, put them on a shelf, and it's kind of like old photos. You pull them out and you're reminded of a beautiful moment in time. It's a good idea to put a date on the back too, or perhaps just something sentimental, or that means something special to you. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. I did love this little Arrtx sketchbook. I'm going to use it a lot, and you can find all of the product information about how to find this product and anything else I've mentioned in this video post. And if you're a patron of mine, you know I'm looking forward to seeing your recreations. All right, everyone, God bless and happy painting.